All right, so we have the top 10 albums of May, and I'll start out by saying that if you're not familiar with the website, at the 6 month mark of every year, I start to make a couple more changes. Every 6 months, I try to give it a go with the what I'm working on, and then change it all up in those next 6 months. And I've staggered it so that the beginning of the year isn't always a huge bout of change, but maybe a suggestion of what will come next time that I rethink my approach in terms of how I write reviews and how I cover bands. But the important subject for today is the best of May, and it was a good month. Most of the best releases kind of came out in the second half. Had plenty of time to get around to a lot of them. The May 30th releases. One of them released the day after it was announced. That is Stargeist's Flame Within Flame, and I would say that's a great record. It's not on here because I literally listened to it a day before I wrote this list. Fantastic record, but I'm not going to rush it. There will be a review for it. Otherwise, we start out with Entheomorphosis's Paiha Kwilu, Finnish sludge metal band, an avant-garde drone doom metal group. It's a mixture of many things meant to convey spiritual outburst. It's a reskinning of the self, a retuning of the spiritual directive of the artist, and it features members of groups like Unfan and Dark Buddha Rising. And so if you're a fan of Waste of Space Orchestra, I feel like this is kind of a shard of that idea. It's kind of its own thing, but it also has some of the same appeal in terms of darker sludge metal, their own unique sounds attributed to that. And I think these are unique musicians making unique music, and that's really what I'm after in terms of every subgenre that I approach. So for me, this was a intense experience. It was simple, but conveyed in a way that was worth my time every time I picked it up. And it also had some big doom metal riffs, which I'm always in for. I wasn't really sure about Iscarnium's latest album, Inexorable Entropy, when I first picked it up. It was a pretty good band in the past. I liked their directive, I liked their taste in general, but they never really hit me with a record that I just loved. And I think Inexorable Entropy took a while because it's short, it really doesn't mess around, and it leaves a little bit to desired initially. And so the score has changed a little bit. I haven't really reflected that here, but for me, this is a actually pretty memorable record. It's the way they balance those spaced out moments and the intensity of their brutality is something I'm looking for more and more. Is both aggression and relief, but not in a corny, loud, quiet, loud kind of way. So the way they move through this record, the way they develop its sound, some of those more creeping atmospheric parts, all of it comes together into something that is imperfect by nature, but still just a great record overall, and one that I returned to quite a few more times than I'd expected. At number 8, we have Ossuary's Abhorrent Worship. And this is the kind of record where I'll have a lot to say. I'll have a lot to criticize about it. It's a known quantity. It's sort of a familiar sound. They do it their own way. They've got unique vocals. And if you're a fan of death doom metal in a classic sense, you'll appreciate what is both traditional about this and what is maybe a little more tuned to sludge metal than doom metal in terms of the way it develops its riffs and stages them. But ultimately, it's a great death doom metal record. It's something I enjoy sitting down with. And so I think I'll take a finer needle to the things I really enjoy most. And overall, a lot of really unique choices on this record help make it something special and worth talking about. So take that as you will, but definitely give this one a little bit of extra time to develop its kind of ranting, straightforward style. While I think it would be fair to say that reviving T-Home, this debut album from Athens, Greek-based, that death metal band, 11th Ray, is many things at once. It's kind of that indefinite article in terms of late 80s extreme metal, where we get ideas from speed metal, ideas from Celtic Frost, we get ideas from emergent black metal in the early 90s. We get very specific references and ideas flowing into this work. I'm always after something that invokes the real underground stuff, the demo level stuff, the bands that didn't have big production values in the 80s and early 90s. And it's really well reflected here in this recording, but also just in the material. It's got that sense of going with their thoughts and trusting them as they write these songs. And I think it was a good session that came up with these pieces. And I just thought it was very unique overall. There's a lot more to say about the record, but it was a good one. It'd be fair to say that I overstated some of the dual rhythm guitar work found on Sacrosanct Demonopathy, but it's for the sake of not finding it anywhere else. I think that this is a 90s black metal record at its heart, and I think that's less of a style note and more of a compliment to their musicianship. I think they've met a very high standard with the guitar work on this record, and that is not something I say very often with black metal records in the modern day. This is not just a bunch of tropes strewn together, but very fine compositional work that indulges many different avenues and interests, but comes out with songs that are their own. And I think that's something that is a pretty big accomplishment for a third record. Most bands are pretty lost by their third album and aren't sure where to go beyond their impetus, but I feel like War Moonlord sound more and more like themselves with each record. And this is a big, grand black metal album that is never pretentious. It's just an attack. And I think it's fantastic as just pick it up and listen to it, solid black metal record, and one that I feel will hold up over time. At number 5, we have Colt's Blood's Obscured into Nebulous Dusk. This is an interesting one because it's a band that were earlier known for a droning type of sludge metal early on, and then they took on more of a funeral doom metal trait with a death doom in there as well. And for me, that it really went somewhere interesting on their second record. Their Finnish funeral doom metal influences really take off on this record in particular, but if you're a fan of anything from Evoken to Neurosis, you're going to appreciate this record and all that it does. You can tell they're fans of extreme metal and not just sludge metal. They're not lost in just one form of extreme metal, and it really helps to build a record that is complete sounding. It really is one of their finest releases to date. And now I appreciate their full discography just a little bit more because of the work they put into this one. It's a fine record. Just as I said earlier, I really appreciate when a band can balance old school death metal brutality, aggression, and a tripped out headspace. Take it somewhere different with the rhythms. Find a rant, a rhythm, or an obsessive movement and really focus on it. But Darkside Ritual do a little bit more than that. They do those things, but it's their own mind palace, and it includes something a little bit more refined. They were focused on technical death metal earlier on, and you can hear a lot of that now that the rhythm section is kind of caught up with the idea of the main songwriter. Everything comes together in a more coherent way, and they start to have more of a strong voice in terms of leads, and in general it's just a well-rounded, complete sounding death metal album that touches upon black metal brutality, technical and sort of psychedelic motions, but stays centered on its purpose of death metal, and I think that just makes for a great listen and a well above average album. Now, I'm not the type of fan who says, a well-known band can do no wrong at some point. There certainly are many crimes in the discographies of some of my favorite groups from back in the day, like Cathedral and whatnot. But for Witchcraft, they've returned very smartly with a complete oeuvre, running the span of about 20 plus years, and put out a very detailed and passionately performed heavy psychedelic rock record that has a strong influence from traditional doom metal. It's got riffs, it's got unique sounds, it's got unusual prog rock tangents, it's got acoustic guitar interludes. There's a lot that went into this record that you'd expect from the guy who put out like Nucleus and some of those earlier works. The cool thing is that they've accumulated all of these ideas into one coherent record that is impressive from start to finish, brings in a lot of the unusual ideas you expect from Magnus Palander, but keeps his strong voice intact and utilizes it as the emotional center of the record and its directive. There's a certain heaviness to the mood that is perfectly suited for some of the heavier songs on here that really come across in both his vocals and his guitar work. So, huge fan of this band, and especially this record. I think it really stands out this year.
De sa jag var galen, att jag var sinnessjuk.
Spanish black metal band Balmog have really stood out to me over the years, since about 2017 or so, 2018, largely because I can't really put my finger on what is so different about them until I could kind of get more of a sense of what they were doing, and then they keep moving the needle and changing what they're doing from album to album in a way that is logical, but a little bit unexpected in terms of their songwriting, which now develops even further beyond Eve back in 2020 or so. They treat black metal as a palette and not so much as a literal directive. They're not taking orders from anyone on Lio, and it's just a little bit more bold and daring with what it's doing, and it makes for just an exciting record on my part. It's something different. It's something I don't hear every day. It's a cool band overall. I really love their art direction and the way they really think about everything they do, and they put a lot of serious thought into everything that they've worked up here. So, huge fan of this band in general. That kind of feeds my opinion here, but also following the progression of their work from Vacuum until now, it's really been incredible in all that they've kind of accomplished and accumulated. So I really feel like this is a representative album in some sense. It's also its own thing at the same time. So check it out for yourself. Here's another band that should rightfully be a little bit hard to describe. I could just say, well, they're an atmospheric death metal album. I mean, that's what they say. I think that's what I've always said. I called them psychedelic death metal at one point because there is sort of there's something unusual about the way they develop atmosphere, as well as just not picking the usual route. There is a rooting in things like Bolt Thrower. Their vocal stylings have been compared to the kind of the dynamic of Bolzer in the earlier days, and it's meant to sound otherworldly. This is a record about dream divination and whatnot. It invokes the right feeling, is that there is a sense of mystery. There's a sense of indefinite shape. There's songs that are essentially rooted in rock guitar. Ultimately, when we get down to the solos and the way that they're arranged, it's still something extreme and otherworldly and unique in its voice. Best album of the month by far. I think it was the one that will stick with me the most throughout the rest of the year, and one that you should check out if you haven't already.